In 1952, a horticultural scientist discovered that a simple tea made from a common tree could root plants as effectively as anything created in a laboratory. No chemicals, no patents, no equipment, just water and branches. The results were published, tested, and quietly acknowledged by professionals. And then within a single generation, it vanished from textbooks, training manuals, and modern practice. Not because it failed, but because it couldn't be sold. This ancient method can root plants in under 7 days. So why don't we use it anymore? In the spring of 1952, horticulturalist Charles Hess published findings that stunned the American nursery industry. He discovered that a simple tea made from willow branches produced rooting success rates that matched or exceeded anything synthesized in laboratories. No patents required, no factories needed, just water, wood, and a waiting period. Within a decade, the method had quietly vanished from horticultural textbooks, replaced by commercial products that cost $20 per bottle and expire within months. We have been told that modern plant propagation requires chemical precision. But what if the most effective rooting hormone has been growing along every riverbank for millennia? This is the secret botanist. The suppression of willow water was not a conspiracy. It was an economic inevitability. A method that costs nothing and works forever cannot coexist with an industry built on repeat purchases. The use of willow branches to spark root growth in cuttings is older than written gardening manuals. Medieval monastery gardens across Europe documented the practice in herbal texts and agricultural records. Monks noticed something remarkable when propagating fruit trees and medicinal herbs. Cuttings planted near willow groves rooted faster, stronger, and with higher survival rates than those planted anywhere else. The correlation was impossible to ignore. Break a willow branch in spring, push it into damp soil, and within days it does not merely survive. It explodes with roots. Thick, white, aggressive roots that anchor the cutting in less than a week. No intervention required. No careful measurement. No controlled environment. The tree simply knows how to root, and somehow, through mechanisms the monks could not explain but could observe, it shared that ability with everything planted nearby. By the 1800s, nurserymen across Europe and North America were quietly using willow extracts in their propagation sheds. The method appeared in Victorian gardening journals, passed between estate gardeners as trade knowledge, and filled the unwritten practices of commercial plant sellers. It worked consistently enough that no one questioned the mechanism too deeply. Roses rooted, fruit trees established, ornamental shrubs multiplied. The willows just worked, and that was enough. The science behind the folklore arrived in 1935 at the Boyce Thompson Institute for Plant Research in Yonkers, New York. Researchers Frederick Wendt, Percy Zimmerman, and Alfred Hitchcock isolated a molecule called indole 3, butyric acid, known in the industry as IBA. When applied to plant cuttings, IBA triggered root formation with remarkable consistency across dozens of species. The molecule works by reprogramming undifferentiated cells in the stem, forcing them to become root initiation cells instead of continuing as vascular tissue. It is a biochemical override that redirects the plant's entire developmental pathway at the cellular level. A patent was filed that same year and licensed to Merck & Company. The documentation described IBA as //// the most effective synthetic rooting agent ever discovered for commercial horticulture, ////. Marketing materials emphasized the word synthetic, modern, scientific, reliable. But there was a problem with that narrative. IBA was not entirely synthetic in origin. It occurred naturally, in massive concentrations, in one specific family of trees, the willows. The Salix genus produced IBA in their young growing tips at levels far exceeding any other known plant species. The same trees that had rooted cuttings for centuries were now chemically confirmed as nature's rooting hormone factory. The molecule that Merck had just patented as a synthetic breakthrough had been freely available in every riverside grove since before humans began agriculture. The medieval monks were not practicing folk magic. They were applying biochemistry they did not have the language to describe. In 1952, Charles Hess revisited the old method with modern laboratory equipment at Purdue University. He prepared what he called //// willow diffusit /////, a water extract made by soaking fresh willow twigs for 24 hours. His trials showed that willow water improved rooting success substantially, especially in difficult-to-root species like hybrid tea roses and stone fruit trees. The results were published in the Journal of the American Society for Horticultural Science and discussed at professional conferences. For a brief moment, it was acknowledged as a legitimate, scientifically validated alternative to commercial products. Then it disappeared, not because the science was debunked, not because later studies contradicted Hess's findings. It vanished because the industry that had just patented synthetic indole 3-butyric acid could not profit from a tree. A patent was filed that same year and licensed to Merck & Company. The documentation described IBA as //// the most effective synthetic rooting agent ever discovered for commercial horticulture, ////. Marketing materials emphasized the word synthetic, modern, scientific, reliable. But there was a problem with that narrative. IBA was not entirely synthetic in origin. It occurred naturally, in massive concentrations, in one specific family of trees, the willows. The Salix genus produced IBA in their young growing tips at levels far exceeding any other known plant species. The same trees that had rooted cuttings for centuries were now chemically confirmed as nature's rooting hormone factory. The molecule that Merck had just patented as a synthetic breakthrough had been freely available in every riverside grove since before humans began agriculture. The medieval monks were not practicing folk magic. They were applying biochemistry they did not have the language to describe. In 1952, Charles Hess revisited the old method with modern laboratory equipment at Purdue University. He prepared what he called //// Willow diffusit //// a water extract made by soaking fresh willow twigs for 24 hours. His trials showed that willow water improved rooting success substantially, especially in difficult-to-root species like hybrid tea roses and stone fruit trees. The results were published in the Journal of the American Society for Horticultural Science and discussed at professional conferences. For a brief moment, it was acknowledged as a legitimate, scientifically validated alternative to commercial products. Then it disappeared, not because the science was debunked, not because later studies contradicted Hess's findings. It vanished because the industry that had just patented synthetic indole 3-butyric acid could not profit from a tree. Willow branches contain two critical compounds that work in tandem to create what biochemists now recognize as a biologically optimized rooting system. The first is IBA, indole 3-butyric acid. The second is salicylic acid, the compound that forms the chemical basis of aspirin. In plants, it functions as a systemic defense activator. When you take a cutting, the stem immediately attempts to seal the wound through a process called callousing. Cork-like tissue forms across the cut surface to prevent water loss. This is normally protective, but premature callousing blocks root initiation. Salicylic acid delays this response just long enough for IBA to reach the cambium layer and trigger root cell differentiation. Commercial rooting powders give you IBA in isolation. They provide the trigger, but not the protective delay mechanism. Willow water gives you both compounds in natural ratio. IBA initiates root growth. Salicylic acid protects developing root primordia. The result is faster rooting, higher survival rates, and more vigorous root systems. It is the same fundamental biochemistry that underpins a $1.2 billion global industry. The only difference is the source. By the late 1930s, the horticultural industry faced a decision. They could inform gardeners about the free tree, or they could market the newly patented synthetic version. They chose the sale. Merck held the patents on synthetic IBA production. They could control manufacturing, standardize concentrations, regulate distribution, and most importantly, set pricing. A nursery that wanted reliable rooting hormone had to purchase it season after season. The subscription model was built directly into the product's shelf life and package size. By contrast, willow water could not be patented. The trees were native. The method was public domain. Anyone with access to a willow grove could produce their own rooting hormone extract for free, in quantities sufficient to propagate thousands of cuttings annually. The initial investment required a handful of willow whips or access to an existing tree. The ongoing cost was zero. For chemical manufacturers, this represented an existential threat to an entire product category. A method that worked without purchase was not a method they could monetize. The solution was not to disprove willow water scientifically. That would have been impossible. The chemistry was identical. The solution was to make it culturally and institutionally irrelevant. Throughout the 1940s and 1950s, marketing campaigns positioned synthetic rooting hormones as modern, professional, and scientifically advanced. Brand names like Root 1 and Hormone appeared in every commercial nursery catalog. Trade publications featured advertisements emphasizing laboratory precision and guaranteed concentrations. The messaging was subtle but pervasive. Professionals used chemicals, amateurs used twigs. University horticulture programs stopped teaching the willow method. Agricultural extension offices stopped recommending it in propagation guides. By the 1960s, it had been systematically erased from mainstream horticultural literature, not because it failed, but because it could not be commodified. The suppression was structural, not conspiratorial. No one needed to actively censor willow water. The economic incentives simply made it invisible. Today, the global plant growth regulator market, which includes rooting hormones, is valued at approximately $1.2 billion annually. Home gardeners pay $15 to $25 for small bottles of rooting powder that expire within 12 to 18 months after opening due to IBA degradation. Commercial nurseries purchase industrial quantities at costs that represent significant operational expenses. The entire business model is designed around repeat purchasing, product expiration, and dependency on manufactured inputs. Meanwhile, willows still grow. They colonize riverbanks, survive in roadside ditches, and establish themselves anywhere water accumulates near the surface. A single mature willow tree, pruned annually, can produce enough cutting material to make several gallons of rooting hormone extract. 1 gallon can treat thousands of cuttings. The tree regenerates the following spring. The cycle continues indefinitely. The industry has no economic incentive to remind you of this reality. The suppression is not active censorship. It is structural invisibility maintained through market forces. It is time to reclaim what was systematically removed from horticultural knowledge. The process is deceptively simple, requiring no specialized equipment or technical expertise. It begins with proper identification. Any species in the Salix genus works: weeping willow, pussy willow, black willow, white willow. Look for trees growing near water sources or in consistently moist soil. The critical factor is the age of the wood you harvest. You need new growth from the current growing season, shoots with green or yellow-green bark that bend without breaking. Older gray or brown wood contains dramatically lower IBA concentrations and produces inferior extracts. Cut young willow shoots into segments approximately 1 to 2 inches long. Remove all leaves, as they contain compounds that can inhibit rooting rather than promote it. Fill a heat-resistant glass jar halfway with the prepared willow segments. Pour boiling water over them until the jar is nearly full. The high temperature immediately ruptures cell walls, releasing IBA and salicylic acid into the water. This is not a gentle infusion. It is a rapid extraction that dramatically increases compound concentration compared to cold water steeping. Seal the jar and allow it to steep for 24 hours at room temperature. When you open it after this period, the water will have turned pale amber or light yellow-brown, similar in appearance to weak tea. This color change indicates successful extraction. Strain out all plant material using a fine mesh strainer or cheesecloth. Store the liquid in a sealed container in the refrigerator. Properly stored, willow water remains biochemically active for approximately 6 to 8 weeks, far longer than the 24-hour stability often claimed in online sources, but shorter than the shelf life of commercial products with chemical stabilizers. To use willow water, pour a small amount into a shallow dish or cup, just enough to submerge the bottom inch of your cuttings. Place freshly taken cuttings into the liquid and allow them to soak for 12 to 24 hours before planting in your rooting medium. The extended soaking time allows IBA to penetrate the stem tissue and accumulate in the cambium layer where root initiation occurs. After soaking, plant the cuttings in your standard propagation setup, moist potting mix, perlite, or whatever medium you typically use. The willow water does not replace proper technique. It enhances it. The method works on roses, berry bushes, fruit trees, ornamental shrubs, and most herbaceous perennials. It performs identically to synthetic rooting hormones because it contains the same active compound at comparable concentrations. The only difference is the extraction method, scissors and hot water instead of industrial synthesis and chemical stabilization. University extension trials conducted in the 1950s and early 1960s, before the method was systematically abandoned, documented success rates equal to or exceeding commercial products for the majority of tested species. The disappearance of willow water from horticultural practice was not malice. It was economics. A product that generates zero recurring revenue cannot survive in an industry structured around consumable inputs and planned obsolescence. But chemistry does not care about business models. IBA is IBA regardless of whether it was synthesized in a factory or extracted from a tree branch. The molecular structure is identical. The biological effect is identical. The only variable is who profits from the transaction. You have a choice. You can remain in the billion-dollar loop, purchasing rooting hormone in small bottles that expire before you finish them, or you can walk to the nearest stream and break the cycle entirely. The method works. The science confirms it. The only question is whether you are willing to use pruning shears instead of a credit card. The industry exists because we forgot what willows have always known. That root formation is a biological process evolution optimized millions of years before humans existed, and that the most effective rooting hormone is not synthesized in laboratories, but grown in the ground. The trees are still there. The branches are still viable. The method still works. The only thing that disappeared was our willingness to use it. If this file changed how you see the trees along every riverbank, subscribe to The Secret Botanist. We are excavating the methods they replaced with products. The next excavation reveals which medieval soil amendment was erased from agricultural practice when synthetic nitrogen became profitable. Some methods were replaced because they failed. Some were replaced because they succeeded too well to be sold. The botanical evidence does not lie. The willows are still rooting. What you choose to plant determines which system you feed.